What happened?
So we're on this job in a city called Grosse Pointe, and you're probably not familiar with Metro Detroit, but it is the old money, the uber rich, really snooty. That's the city we're working in. And the job that I sold was simply repainting the siding and the trim. But I got this crew out there, and the crew leader is just like the nicest guy. He's a bit of a pushover. He's willing to do whatever. And the customer had been pretty particular, but overall, things were fine until he asked my guy to dispose of a gallon of oil-based stain that had been sitting in his garage for a few years. And like, it's not really part of our scope of work. Obviously, we're not taking care of other people's garbage that we didn't even generate. But this guy's like, okay, fine, yeah, we'll take care of it. He picks up the gallon, and as he's walking it out to his truck, the handle breaks off the can and spills all over this guy's driveway that had just been installed. This exposed aggregate sealed driveway probably cost the guy $35,000 finish. It's like, what do you do? Like we're not supposed to be disposing of their
Yeah.
own garbage. It's not even a product that we were using. We were trying to
Yeah.
do the guy a favor.
Hmm.
It was, I would say, out of on the level on 0 to 100% reasonable. The customer was like 50% reasonable, understanding that it's
Mm.
a can, it wasn't our fault. We didn't like break it, and so we ended up having to write off about $2,500 off the project. We tried to clean it
Mm.
up. You can still see the spot. It is what it is. But like that, it taught us a lesson. Like, don't do favors for people. Is that a good lesson to learn or no?
Well, that's a hard one. Oh man, what a bummer! What a bummer indeed for
Yeah.
being a good guy. Well, hello and welcome to DYB Podcast. Today's guest is from Oakland, Michigan, or Detroit. President of Ellison Painting, Brad Ellison. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me, man. Happy to connect with you.
Hey, my pleasure. Uh, you are in your second year, I believe. You said you're in business 15 months, and you're tracking for 2.75, maybe 3 million in your second year. Is that correct?
Yes, if those numbers hold up,
Hmm.
then yes, they're actually under what our stated goal was for the year. But we've had a bit of a crazy year with some unexpected situations that popped up that we couldn't avoid. But yeah, short
Okay.
short answer
Mhm.
is yes, we are tracking for those numbers.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, let's get into that. But first, take us back to the beginning. How did you get started?
Sure. So my background is not in the trades. It's not in painting at all. I did start my very first business when I was 19. It was a window washing company. I spent one summer washing windows for another company, and I was like, "Hey, I like doing this. I bet I could sell some paint jobs." So I launched my own company, and that was that. Did it for a summer in between college semesters. Enjoyed it, but really never focused on it. Didn't take off, and it fizzled and died. I started my sales career when I was about 24. I was selling life insurance, and I did that for a bunch of years. Bounced from life insurance to health insurance to software to marketing services all over the place. And when my wife and I finally got married when I was 30, 34, 35, we decided at that point that we never wanted to work for anyone ever again. So we both had jobs. I was managing this. I was selling software for this company. She was working for her dad's company in the automotive world. So we both quit our jobs and launched our first business together, which was a health insurance agency. Health insurance, what we do is we sell to individuals, not companies, not group plans. And so it's highly seasonal. You can only buy these new plans during an open enrollment period, which is at the time was November 1st through January 31st, so 3 months. So we launched and we spent some money in marketing. That business generated a bunch of revenue, but at the end of the 3 months, it's like, what are we going to do for 9 more months? There's not much we can do within that business. We could start selling other services, but I didn't want to get too deep in financial services. It was a way to make money, but not anything I was passionate about. So we're like, well, what if I tried to find some sort of seasonal sales job that alternated, that was busy in the spring, summer, fall, and then slow in the winter so that I could go back and run the insurance business with my wife. So we talked and prayed about that on a Saturday. Sunday morning, we happened to meet this guy at my church who owned a painting company and was looking for a sales guy and maybe someone to eventually buy his business. So I met him on Sunday. By Tuesday of that week, we had decided to partner together. So he brought me on as sales guy. Within about 6 months, I was straight up running his business and did that for 5 years.
About what size is the business? The
We were
operation.
doing about $3 million, $2.5 to $3 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
When towards the end of that 5 years, we had an agreement to purchase the company. But when as we're getting closer to the date that the contract was actually going to be executed, we realized it wasn't in our best interest. Not only was it not in our best interest, but it would have been and could have been financially devastating to my family if we bought that company.
Mm-hmm.
So we made a very, very difficult decision in March of 2022 to part ways and launch Ellison Painting. So I kind of fell into the painting industry because I was looking for something seasonal.
So what was it about that deal, or what can you share that would have made it a bad deal for you? Just the way it was structured,
Yeah,
what he wanted for the buyout.
it's kind of complicated because when we signed, when I came on board with them, the original plan was 2 years later we would have the opportunity to buy it. As we came up to that 2 years, he's like, well, just make me an offer. Let's figure it out. So we ran some numbers. We talked to a CPA. We talked to a business consultant and came up with an offer that was significantly less than he thought it was going to be worth. Right.
Which is pretty common. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, if that's the case, then I can't sell it right now. I have to work and save money for 3 more years. But let's sign a contract. And at the end of that 3 years, then you can buy it. So we signed that contract in 2020, right before COVID hit, really. So COVID hits in Michigan. We were shut down for 2 months. A lot of crazy things happened that affected our revenue. We had a really bad rain year. We lost 55 days to rain one summer. We had this other siding vertical that was in place when I signed the contract that had disappeared during that course. So when it actually came to the time to purchase, the business was actually worth less than it was when we signed the contract. So we tried to renegotiate. I don't think he could afford to renegotiate it. He needed that money for his retirement, and which I totally understand and appreciate. And so we just said, all right, well,
okay,
just can't do it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you. Okay, so you guys decide to go on your own.
Yep. We had a kind of a unique origin story for our company. Not only was I not a painter, but we really had every single advantage going for us when we launched. Okay. So I wasn't a painter, but I'd spent 5 years running a pretty good sized painting company in the Metro Detroit area. I had, by that time, started to build up a bit of a reputation within the industry. So people locally and nationally knew who I was. So it was going to make it a little easier to recruit and find subcontractors. But maybe most importantly, and I'm not naive to understand that this is probably most importantly, we had been saving up money for a big down payment to buy that business that we no longer had to spend it on a down payment. So we had like $200,000 in our business bank account to launch a painting company. And almost no one has that, right? Most people, as well as anyone, most people start off with a paintbrush and a van
and they deposit from the first job.
Right. And they start saving money and hopefully bring more people on and expand very slowly. Well, because we had the expertise on how to grow and run a big company and the money to do it, boom, we just spent a ton of money in marketing, spent a ton of time before we launched in building our systems. All of our SOPs were written out. Here's what our customer experience is going to look like. Here's how we're going to manage our crews. Here's where we're going to find them. Here's what the crews are expected to do. Here's how we're going to do collections. So, I mean, I had already had the playbook on how to launch before we launched.
All right, a few questions there. Thank you. Where do you keep your SOPs? Do you Google Docs or do you use a specific app?
We use Google Drive to house all of our documents.
Yeah, I've been through probably 4 or 5 different SOP apps and programs, and I've gone back to Google Docs. I find that is really the most efficient, effective.
It just seems to be the easiest, right? I mean, that's where if there is a better solution, easier solution, I'm always open to changing anything that we do if it makes it easier.
one of the biggest roadblocks in SOPs, whether it's a lot of times painters will think of it as the technical production, out in the field, but whether it's sales marketing, is that when they're being executed, the person executing it needs to be able to update it and edit them. Otherwise, they become worthless way too fast. If it takes too much of a process to go back in there and update them, so that's another reason why I love Google Docs.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that a lot of people miss is that SOPs should never be written in stone.
Mm-hmm.
We have our quarterly meetings. We follow the Traction EOS system. So
Mm-hmm.
every quarterly meeting, we put that all up for debate. Is our project management SOPs still valid? Have we
Mm-hmm.
seen bottlenecks or issues over the past quarter that we need to address to update? That's been really valuable for us to just not only be able to adapt to what the marketplace needs from us, but
Mm-hmm.
also as we bring new people on board, have fresh eyes on it,
Mm-hmm.
getting essentially what is outside and new perspective on how we're doing things.
Yeah, right on. And then money in marketing. Were you paying for leads? What were you doing for marketing when
Yeah,
you
so
launched?
we
Mm-hmm.
so we based my marketing budget on what we wanted to do in revenue for the first 12 months. The goal was to do about 1.5 million in the first 12 months. So we launched with a $13,000 a month marketing budget. That
Which is what percent?
about
Do you have
10%.
that? 10. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
So we focused on Facebook ads. We focused on Google ads. Obviously, we
In-house or
paid.
outsource?
I'm
Mhm.
sorry.
Excuse me. In-house or outsource?
Outsource everything. Yeah, I don't really believe in house almost anything. uh, yes, we hired an agency. They built our website. They launched our Facebook ads. They launched our Google ads. They started working on SEO. Uh, I basically was stealing ideas from Jason Paris. Um, he likes to say, I'm trying to do what Jason Paris did, but do it a little bit faster and bigger. And I'm only able to do that, of course, because he has given me his playbook. So another big strategy of ours, influenced by him and Paris Painting, was door hangers. So we started a big door hanger campaign right away. So we got traction right away because the lead sources that we were investing in were giving us immediate results, right? So we still focus on SEO and relationship building and networking, knowing that those will be more important in the long term. But in the short term, we're like, hey, we got all this cash. We need leads.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it worked.
Right on. What? Okay. So you get going. How did you find your subs? Right. So to staff up that fast is not easy. So it's going to be difficult to find subs too. We can't just go pay for leads for subs. You had to hustle network for those, I would imagine.
Correct. So our primary lead sources for subs would be Sherwin-Williams. I actually make a strategic decision with Sherwin-Williams and my relationship with them to kind of overpay for materials. So I could probably get lower pricing on per gallon for the paint that we buy because we buy a lot of it, but I actually pay a little bit more so that when I call and need something from them, I get immediate response and I'm top priority. So when my Sherwin-Williams rep asked me, what do you need from me this quarter? I say, I don't need lower pricing. I don't need golf outings. I don't need you to buy me a watch. What I need is subcontractors. And so my rep has been amazing. Anytime he comes across possible crews, he's sending them my way. And he's also deputized the local store managers. So when a crew comes in looking for subcontractors, Ellison Painting usually gets first dibs at it. And I like
Nice.
that. I like that lead source because they're essentially pre-vetted, right? He's not going to refer over a crew that he thinks is going to be lower quality or unreliable. So it takes some of those road bumps out of the way a little bit, at least. The other source is through the painting contractors Facebook groups. So I was very fortunate that when Tanner Mullen launched his big Facebook group a few years ago, I think I was in like the first 100 members or something. And Tanner and I hit it off, and he eventually made me an admin of that page. And now that's me, Tanner, and one other guy that are admin of this page with 175,000 members. And through that group, that's how I met everyone. I mean, ultimately, that's how I met Jason Paris. That's how I met Nick Slavic and the Kuipers and all these people that have been so influential to my journey within the painting industry. Well, because I'm an admin in there and my name says admin and group expert, when I post in that group saying, hey, I'm looking for subcontractors in Metro Detroit, I'm able to get a pretty good response. And so, honestly, more than half of our crews, I think, have come through just networking and reaching out through Facebook. And that's how I get them to respond back.
Okay, right on. Tech stack. What's your tech stack look like to manage your operations?
So we use OpenPhone for our phone system. I don't know if you're familiar with OpenPhone, but it's VoIP. It's pretty good. What I really like about it is that you can assign multiple users to multiple phone numbers. And when someone calls and we don't pick up, which, we don't have a full time phone call answerer right now, they get an automatic text message back that says, hey, sorry, missed your call. If you're looking to schedule an estimate, click this link and schedule it yourself. So OpenPhone has been really valuable. It also allows me to record the phone calls of all of my employees. So I can hear all the conversations my salespeople, project managers, admin that they're having with our customers or potential customers. And that sounds a little bit big brotherish, right? But it's not that, because my people are high. I trust them very, very highly, and they're highly skilled. But it has allowed me to give them some feedback, and allows them to say, hey, I had this weird call. You mind listening through, see if you can provide some feedback. So that's OpenPhone. For CRM, we use DripJobs. DripJobs is nice because it handles all the marketing and like text, email automation on the front end. The estimate delivery is pretty slick. You can customize what your estimate's going to look like. And of course, that helps us with scheduling, invoicing, collections, the whole nine. So DripJobs has been really valuable. I think we are testing the limits of DripJobs. We're one of the bigger companies on the platform with multiple users. So it's Tanner gets chirped at about once a week from me saying, hey, when is this issue going to be fixed? How, what can I do about it? And then we tie Company Cam into DripJobs as well. So Company Cam has been really valuable for us. We take about 20 to 25 pictures for every single estimate, and Company Cam is connected to DripJobs, so those pictures automatically go into that estimate. But when a job starts, we also add our subcontractors as collaborators. So they can take progress pictures while we're there. My project managers are taking progress pictures every time they stop by a job site. And then of course, we're using it for after pictures too. The other really nice thing about Company Cam is we give our marketing agency access to Company Cam. And when we mark a job as complete, now they can go grab collateral for our ads and our posts. So they can just go and grab the befores and afters, create the post, send it out.
That's nice. You're one of the few out there who are not using the same tired,
Mm-hmm.
what are those photos called? The stock
Like
photos.
stock photos. Oh gosh,
yeah.
Stock photos are so cringy. Yeah. So
there's like three of them that everybody uses.
All the pictures and all of our marketing is actually like
right on.
photos from our work. Yeah.
So how do you communicate the work orders? How do you hand off? What tech do you use to hand off the work orders?
So the work orders can be sent directly from DripJobs. So the crew gets a text message and an email with the work order, and then they also have the link to Company Cam.
And then okay, nice. What do you use to for calendar for mapping out all your projects?
So DripJobs has that function, though it's not really the best for us with the number of crews that we have. Any given day, we're going to have anywhere between 8 to 15 different projects going on. And the functionality within DripJobs we were really, really testing that. So that's also something we use Google Sheets for. So it's basically a big whiteboard, a never-ending whiteboard, and it's really flexible. So if a job is delayed one day, it's pretty simple to just move it over one day, and we can all see exactly where the projects stand.
Nice. Okay. Any other tech?
Not really. I mean, we don't even use QuickBooks or anything.
No,
no.
You don't use what?
What we use? We use We use the accountant that I've had since I was 19, and every other month, I schedule an hour and a half with him, and I sit at his desk, and we go through all of our expenses. And that's so old school, but I found that's the most efficient use of our time to do it, and it's way more affordable. I mean, this guy, because when you run a painting company, the expenses are the same expenses over and over. It's Sherwin-Williams, it's fuel, it's paying subcontractors, it's payroll. There's not a bunch of unique types of expenses that we're having. So he just
Yeah.
90 minutes later, I'm caught up for those 2 months.
So what you're going at an incredible growth trend. What gross profit are you able to hold on to through this growth?
So we are at about we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15%. Oh, gross
Hmm.
profit or net?
Gross,
Oh,
gross.
gross.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can tell you gross profit, we are averaging about 42% for labor, 12 to 13% for materials, which leaves 42 to
45,
43,
42. Yeah.
45% gross
That's still
profit.
fantastic for the growth trend you guys are on. Okay.
Yeah, the
And then
gross
you're
profit's
clearing.
good. The net profit
Hmm.
is where we start to get a little lean. My
Yeah.
marketing budget's high. I brought a lot of employees on in project management and sales roles really before I had the revenue to justify it. So now we're just catching up to that.
Do you have some campaigns in place to keep top of mind to your customer base?
To our like exist past customers,
Hmm.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we have automated follow ups through drip jobs.
Mm,
It's basically email and text
fantastic.
campaigns.
Okay. Right on. Where does your drive come from, Brad?
Man, I like that question. People never ask me that. Um, I don't know. I have a drive to just continually be better, right? I don't really believe in the status quo, though I actually do believe in being content. So on one hand, I'm like super content with my life. I love my wife. I like my wife. I love and like my kids. I have this fantastic business that I enjoy doing. I have this great group of friends. I'm in excellent health. I work out all the time. I'm very content with my life, but I still feel like there's room for more, not just for me, but for the other people that I love and care about and that work with me and whatnot. So part of it is to always get better. I have a natural competitive spirit. So as much as I love Jason Paris and I wish him unending, never-ending success, uh, I'm in such admiration of what he and his team have done. But now I want to do that. I want to do a little better, right? So it's
Okay.
like
So what?
I like
Yeah.
having these guys that are way above me that I'm kind of chasing after.
So does
Um,
that mean you're looking to bring on some partners?
I, in some capacity, I mean, if you ask Jason, uh, they want to partner with me, which I think that's understandable. I think I would be a good company for them to partner with. But honestly, and I've said this to Jason and his team, I love and trust those guys so much. The downside for me in partnering with them is that my partners aren't in the next office like their partners are. Right? I'm an extreme extrovert. The social piece of everything that I do, whether it be work or fitness or whatever, the social piece is really important to me. If I could get Jason and his guys to move to Detroit and we could have an office suite and they're my partners, I would probably say yes in an instant because I know that there's going to be at some point a limit to how far I can grow Ellison Painting without additional partner help, right? So, I mean, but I would say ultimately my drive now comes from providing for my family, changing the legacy of my family and the legacy I grew up in, and now extend that one step further to helping the people that work with me change their family legacy as well. One of the things I'm most proud of 15 months in is that we have multiple painters that are doing Ellison painting jobs that are making over $100,000 a year. That's awesome,
Hmm.
right? Guys that
Yeah. Oh
are,
yeah.
first generation immigrants that came from
Hmm.
Albania and now they're here, they're married and they're just having kids. Actually, one of my favorite painters I have, guy I love so much like a brother, just had his first daughter yesterday.
Oh yeah.
And those are the guys, like, I love that. What drives me is continuing to provide opportunities for those guys that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Hmm. Speaking of the guys, what part does culture play for you in your company?
Culture. So culture is now what I make my hires based on. Core values and culture. So we have well defined core values within Ellison Painting. And when I'm interviewing someone for a project manager role, for instance, we talk about those core values, and I get their feedback on each of those five. What does this? What does this mean to you? Does it resonate? Are there any of these that you feel don't resonate with you? Um, And then the culture is then the next step after that. It's, how do we operate as a team? So I wouldn't consider hiring someone if they didn't match our core values. Um, and then so that's like the prerequisite. And then are they going to fit within our culture of levity and fun, lightheartedness, but ultimately hard work and exceptionalism? So I think culture internally is really good. We had this really gnarly situation happen in my company this year. Beginning of June, my right hand man, uh, his 1-year-old daughter was diagnosed with leukemia out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, boom, my right hand man is gone for 5 weeks. And not only that, we had a situation where our other project manager, we had found out that he had been lying about some things. It was kind of shady. So I had to fire him even after, like right after Ron had to go on leave. Now, so that left me, my other sales guy, and my admin. The culture that we had built was very sacrificial in nature, where everyone stepped up to the plate. Veronica, my admin, was like, all right, I will take on this and this. And Mark said, you focus on project management. I will handle all of the estimates. And we were able to leave Ron completely alone for those 5 weeks. He could focus on his daughter, focus on his wife. And we just kind of got gritty and got through it. If we didn't have that healthy culture where we all actually like each other and want the best for each other, I think that could have been the death knell of Ellison Painting, or certainly it certainly could have prevented us from hitting any amount of success through the year. But we held it together. Ron's back now. His daughter is in remission, thank God. She's still in treatment, and she will be for quite a while. And we've had to adjust Ron's schedule to allow him to have the flexibility to take her to doctor's appointments and all this. And we brought on another project manager to replace the guy I fired. And now I feel like we are healthier than ever, and our trajectory is back up to where it was.
Right on. Can you give us an overview of your org chart?
Yeah. So right now, I'm the owner. My wife is technically co-owner. She worked with me as project manager for the first 6 months, but now she's no longer active in the day-to-day, but she does come to all of our quarterly meetings. And of course, she's my number one sounding board every day when I go home. So that's my wife and I there. And we have Ron. So Ron is project manager, head of operations. He manages one other project manager. He also manages Veronica, she was hired as an admin. She's proven to be exceptionally valuable in a lot of different things. So she's transitioned into a project coordinator role. So she's the one that actually schedules all the projects between the customers and the crew. For the time being, she is also handling scheduling of estimates, but we are about to hire a VA to offboard all of that. And then as far as sales, I still do run estimates, and then I have one other estimator that works under me, and that's the sales team.
Okay,
So
right on.
Me and 4 full-time employees.
Yep. You mentioned you love and like your wife. How important is it to have a strong marriage when building and succeeding in business?
Well, Steve, this is a second marriage for me, and I can tell you, my first marriage, I would argue that the primary reason why it didn't last and why she ultimately decided she didn't want to be married to me was we didn't like each other, and I don't think we ever did. We ever really did, And I think that while I had a little bit of success while I was married to her in my sales career, I never would have had the support to start my own business and really risk it all. My wife, Rachel, is so smart, and she's so high integrity, and our relationship is so good. She trusts me so much that while I run every idea past her because I want her feedback and I value that, ultimately her response in almost every situation is, if you think that's the best idea, you should absolutely do it. So she had no hesitation in launching the company. Like, yeah, we're technically risking everything that we have, but also when you have a healthy marriage and a healthy relationship, you can have this perspective of, well, let's say we risk all this money. Say we blow through $200,000 in 6 months, and it turns out it was a fluke, and the only reason I had any success in the painting industry was because it was someone else's company. Well, what then? Well, then we just go get jobs. We don't want to, but we can. I'm a good sales guy. She's a phenomenal communicator and project manager. We can always go get jobs and make enough money to live the lifestyle that we want to live until we decide what we want to do next. Right. And so having that freedom where we're highly capable, we can lose everything and still be fine. It allows you to take a lot more risks. So, I mean, my wife, if I didn't have my wife, it's not like if I didn't have a wife, if I didn't have my wife, Brad Ellison and Ellison Painting are absolute trash. They're nothing.
Right on. Okay. Thank you. Books. What books have made an influence in your life?
So Traction, EOS for sure. One book that most people aren't familiar with. Do I have it here? I don't. It's called Range. Let me see if I can remember who wrote this book. It's like David Epstein or something. Let me see. Yeah, David Epstein.
Range,
Yeah.
Range.
So I have this buddy, Tim. Tim and I have known each other forever. He was actually in the youth group when I was a volunteer leader of the youth group. So he's like, 7 or 8 years younger than me. When he got married, I was invited to be a part of his wedding. And for groomsmen gifts, instead of getting like whatever, some silly tie or whatever, he actually bought a book for each of the guys specifically for them. It's a book. He's like, I think that this would speak directly to you. This made me think of you. So he bought me this book called Range, and I'd never heard of it. And the whole book is all about the power of being a generalist. So he uses these examples. Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is not a generalist. Tiger Woods, from the time he was a little kid, was hyper-focused on golf, and that might be the only thing that he will ever be extremely good at through his entire life because he's a specialist. Other people have had equal success, sometimes greater success, by being a generalist, where you're not hyper-specialized in anything. You don't have any great expertise in any one certain thing, but you are pretty darn good at a lot of different things. And so Tim gave me that book, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a generalist. There's a lot of things that I like to do that I'm pretty good at, but I'm not the best. I used to sing professionally, for instance, right? I'm a pretty good singer, but the people I've sang with, when I was on tour with, they've been nominated for Grammy Awards, and they're movie stars and Broadway stars now, and I'm like just a pretty good singer. I'm a pretty good sales guy. I've worked with guys that are better sales guys, but I have all these skill sets that are pretty darn good that lend themselves, I think, to being a really excellent entrepreneur. So that's another book that I love. It may not speak to everyone because I think some people fancy themselves as specialists, but for me as a generalist, that one really spoke.
I think it was Robert Kiyosaki said specialists know more and more about less and less.
That's right. That's right. And there's a lot of value in that, right? Like when I hire someone for a marketing position, I want that person to be an absolute expert at marketing. I don't care if they know how to recruit subcontractors. I don't know if they care about how to apply paint. I need them to be experts at the one thing that I'm paying them to do. Yeah. So that was a good one. I remember reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I started my sales career.
Oh yeah.
And that helped change my mindset about generational wealth, wealth versus money. I didn't grow up with wealth or money, so I'm still trying to establish my healthy views on those. And of course, the Bible. I don't know if you're allowed to say that. It's too cliche, but as a believer, of course, that's fundamentally what I base all my decisions and principles on.
Amen. Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you. Brad, I really appreciate you coming on, and I know you're real busy, got a lot going on there. You're scaling at an incredible speed, trying to surpass Jason, which is a cool goal because everybody needs a competitor. So, keep running at them. But is there a question I should have asked or any final points you'd like to make before we wrap this up?
Well, one of the things that I like to talk about on these is, or just talk about with other contractors in general, is the idea of like real balance. I will never be a workaholic. I don't like working. I don't know about you, but I don't really enjoy working. I don't get my energy from working, and my drive doesn't come from having huge financial success. My drive comes from external sources that then play back into the growth of my business. And so people wonder, well, you grew so fast, you might do 2.5 or 3 million in your second year. You must be working like 60, 70 hours a week. And my answer to that is like, I've never worked 60 or 70 hours a week in the painting industry, and I won't. I set pretty clear boundaries. I wake up in the morning, I have coffee with my wife, and hang out with our kids from about 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock. I go to work, and whether that's estimates or going to the office, whatever I got to do. But every day I clock out at 3 o'clock so that I can be at the gym at 3:30, work out from 3:30 to 4:30, home for 5 o'clock dinner. Nearly every day, that's my schedule. And because that's important to me, I've built systems in place that take care of everything else so that I can really focus on the things that I'm passionate about, which is, my faith, my family, and my fitness. Balance is hard because I think a lot of people live, with closed fists, and they want to, that could be whether it's holding on to the reins of their business or holding on to their money. And I learned a long time ago that the more I release that and live open-handedly, the more freedom that I'm going to have in the long run. So I pay my people really well so that I can attract high functioning, highly capable individuals to help me run this company, and I don't have to be looking over their shoulder all the time. I made the decision up front to spend money in marketing to generate leads so that I didn't have to just trudge through and try to get some traction organically. I hired people before we needed them or before my revenue could justify it. Otherwise, I would be hitting these plateaus where I'm at max capacity and then trying to figure out how to bring someone on and train them. So I think that the problem is that people say they want balance, but they're not willing to take the risks or make the sacrifices to actually do that. You might mean making less money for a period of time so that you can have the actual balance that you say that you want. But also some people say they want balance and they don't. They want more family time, but they go home and they don't like their family. So step one, fix your relationships with your family. Step two, fix your business so you can have more family time, right? But yeah, I love talking about that. And actually, there's going to be a conference in Phoenix in October that Service Legends putting on. And Ryan Davis has asked me to speak specifically about that, how to scale a contracting business or a service-based business past $1 million in 1 year while still maintaining a healthy family and real life balance.
Right on. Fantastic. Thank you, Brad. If somebody wanted to follow up, what's the best way they should get hold of you?
I'm on Facebook is my primary platform. I don't have anything to sell, right? So you don't go buy my book and don't subscribe to my podcast. I don't have any of that, but I do love talking with other contractors, and I get guys reaching out to me all the time, picking my brain after hearing me on something like this. So Facebook, it's just under Bradley Ellison. You can reach me on Instagram at Brad Ellison or at Ellison Painting MI. Happy to connect, happy to help others in any way I can to elevate the industry. And we're going to try to do that 2 gallons at a time.
2 gallons at a time, right on. Awesome. Thanks again, Brad.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you.